friends, it's Teresa and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be me talking about some books that kind of have the either center around family or have family kind of as a focal point or just has a really big theme around family. Now this is coming out, I believe, on Black Friday, so I am completely aware that not everyone has a family to go home to or a healthy family to go home to. I get it. I get it. However, I did decide to do things like, linear family. We have some complicated family relationships, some strong familial bonds, some found family. So hopefully there's a little bit of everything in here that you guys can go ahead and enjoy. Like I said, I do understand that, it's the holidays. Not everyone has a strong family they can go home to. And, it is kind of what it is. But I think that, some books that do tackle those really difficult familial conversations or have you questioning family. Like I said, hopefully there's something for everyone and something that everyone can enjoy or agree on. So let's just get into the video. But in no particular order, I'm going to go ahead and start off with Blanca y Roja by Anna Marie McLemore. This is a YA magical realism novel following two young sisters who during their entire lives have been pitted against one another because one day after they reach, I believe, 15, the swans will come and end up choosing one of the girls to turn into a swan. So whomever the swans deem is not worthy becomes a swan, whoever deems is worthy continues on. So it's been almost like this kind of back and forth between the generations of trying to create a girl who is more worthy, and these girls have been kind of this last generation and they're at their wits' end, and that is until maybe their solution comes from a boy who went missing a few years ago and is found in the woods. This has a pretty complicated familial relationship. A lot of family members have been pitted against one another for several years, so it's very hard to describe kind of that feeling of love and adoration for one another. It's there somewhere, it's just not very pronounced or very obvious. I think a lot of people with complicated familial relationships will probably enjoy this. It also does have a very strong sister bond. At the end of it, all they wanted was to choose each other. And I think that's very interesting and something worth to be talking about. The next book is A Found Family, and I know which one y'all are thinking about because it comes up every single time you Google Found Family. And that is Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. I almost said Kaz Brekker. It's fine. But this is a heist story, actually, following this group of thieves who, in reality, probably shouldn't be working so well together, but they do. And in this situation, they were asked to pull off one of the hardest... What is going on? It's a frizzy mess. It's fine. To pull off one of the hardest heists in history, which is to break into this very unbreakable prison. This is Found Family in all the ways that you would think it is. It's a group of mishmash teens who have no family to go or whose families they no longer can talk to or really be in contact with. But somehow they find each other and they find a family and a home within each other. I think it's a really good, strong foundation if you're trying to dip your toes into Found Family or if you are just particularly in the mood for a very dysfunctional Found Family. Moving on to complicated familial relationships, or at least a book with it, and that's gonna have to be After the Flood by Cassandra Montague. This is an adult dystopia, post-apocalyptic situation where two major floods have come in and completely decimated the world, and now it's just society trying to figure out how to live afterward. This follows a young mother who is trying to put her family back together after her husband steals her eldest daughter while she's pregnant with the youngest. Now this book is one of my favorites. It was one of my favorites of 2020. I cannot stop raving about this book and I can't wait for more books from Cassandra Montague. But this is just basically a big question of what are you willing to do to protect your family and make it whole again? Are you willing to sacrifice a piece of yourself or a piece of the family that you have now? I really love this book. I can't get enough of it. Like I said, it does have very complicated familial relationships. We do get to see a lot of that complication as the book progresses and a lot of that internal struggle between a mother and her love for her daughters. The next book is actually a new favorite of mine. That's going to have to be Arsenic and Adobo by Mia P. Manansala. This is an adult cozy thriller, light thriller, however you want to put it, light thriller, cozy thriller, following this young woman who returns home after she drops out of college due to the fact that her relationship has failed and she kind of needs a fresh start. Here, she finds herself working back at her family's restaurant and runs into her ex. Now, her ex and her don't necessarily get along very well. However, it is exacerbated when he dies after she feeds him something. This has a lot of familial relationships and familial bonds, both in a found family aspect between her and her best friend, but then also between her and her aunts. She is highly devoted to her family and her aunt. She wants the best for the store and wants to see it succeed, and just wants to protect her family at whatever means necessary. I recommend it. It's a touch of Filipino culture for y'all. Touch of kind of that Filipino like love for family and the debt that we feel toward our family for creating the life that they have for us. Highly recommend it if you're looking for something kind of like that during the season. There's also a lot of food. I think there are recipes in the back actually. There are recipes in the back. So I think I am gonna have to like try this, especially the ube crinkles. My family and I always make crinkles for the holidays, so I kind of would like to try ube crinkles. The next book is another new favorite of mine. That's going to have to be We Hunt the Flame by Hafsa Faizal. This is another YA high fantasy novel following two perspectives, one of which is Safira, who is a huntress who kills to protect her family and the people in her village. Then we have Nasir, who is a killer and kills, whose entire existence is to kill people. This has both like everything in what you want. Strong familial relationship. She has one with, I believe, her best friend / her sister. Or her sister. I'm forgetting. Then we have a found family aspect between the group of friends that come together during this book to get to their end goal, and as well as complicated family relationships. There's just an amalgamation. I think it's a fun and sad. Like, I was crying a little bit. It's a very complicated YA high fantasy. I really highly recommend it. It's one of my favorites of the year, probably of ever. But like I said, I highly recommend this book. It's such a good book, and it does, like I said, feature all of those like very complicated and strong and found family aspects that I think would really fit if you guys are looking for something that doesn't have just, I guess, a linear version of what a family should look like. The next book we're going to have to talk about is one that I personally love, and it's a middle grade novel, and I'm going to have to go with Percy Jackson and the Olympians, The Lightning Thief by Rick Riordan. This series entirely encompasses found family and strong familial bonds. Literally, okay, so let's just start off this way. Percy is like in what, 7th grade? 6th grade? And he finds out he's a demigod. Now in this process he finds out that he is part of a prophecy that's kind of destined to help the world or help doom it. He doesn't know what. But Percy is, like, this book is the definition of found family, because throughout the series we get to see him build these relationships between his fellow campers and these other mythological beings that I think is just absolutely marvelous. And literally in the first book, he goes through all of these hoops to save his mommy. How can you not, like, love that? I think he and his mom have a very strong relationship, and that's also a very obvious sign throughout the books as he grows up, but his mom continues to be like a very strong woman and a very good person for him to be around. And like I said, he literally goes through hell and back to save his mother in the first book. So if that doesn't signify a strong, like, loving familial bond to you, I don't know what else. Moving on to a book with more complicated / strong familial bonds, I'm going to have to go with An Ember in the Ashes by Sabaa Tahir. This is very similar to We Hunt the Flame in terms of familial bonds. This is a YA high fantasy following young Laia, who is undergoing a rescue mission after her brother breaks martial law and is quickly imprisoned. During this time, she finds herself intrigued not only by the world but by the people in it, and is realizing this is a much more dangerous game than she had intended to play. Like I said, this does have the strong and complicated familial bonds aspect, a little bit of found family, I'd like to say, just a little bit. The strong part being the fact that Laia literally goes into a world that she does not quite understand, that she does not really have the capacity to, like, maneuver around in just quite yet, but still does it for the sake of saving her brother. As well, for complicated, Elias has a very difficult time with his mother. Very difficult. It's barely even a bond, but we do get to see a lot of Elias's personality and how he's developed because of his very difficult mother. It's a good book. I love this book. It's one of my favorites. I need to continue on with the series. I am only in the 2nd book, but it's one of my favorites, and I just adore this situation. It's good. It's great. Grand even. The next one is another complicated kind of familial relationship, and I'm going to have to go with The Fire on High by Elizabeth Acevedo. This is a YA contemporary novel following a young girl who is a teen mother who is trying to figure out her senior year of high school while also navigating motherhood and trying to follow her own dreams. There she takes a cooking class and finds that her natural talent needs to be mixed with a little bit more technical work. I really enjoyed this book. This is such a cute, loving read. We do get to see some of that kind of complicated familial relationships, in the sense that she is currently living with her grandmother. I believe she doesn't really hear from her father often. I don't believe her mother is in the picture, and on top of that, the father, her baby's father, is a very difficult man to work with and kind of has this weird almost, I can date people, but you can't date people, because it's a bad example for her daughter. Same thing with her relationship with her, I guess, almost in-laws. It's such a good book. It has all those relationships and more, and I really enjoyed reading this from Emily's perspective and seeing her kind of traverse through the world while she tries to balance all of these different identities and find a middle ground for it. But I mentioned this in my last video, and that's going to have to be The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is an adult historical fiction novel set in the 1950s in modern day, following young Monique Grant, who is asked to write a story about the elusive Evelyn Hugo and finds herself in the middle of learning about all of her 7 husbands and everything in between. Love this book. There is a found family in terms of the relationships that Evelyn makes in this book. I can't spoil it a ton because it does spoil a major thing in the book itself, but it's wonderful, and I love seeing LGBT found families. It's such a time when you think it would be kind of impossible because of kind of the AIDS crisis, and then again, everyone hated the gays back in the 50s. The last complicated, not the last book, but the last book featuring a complicated familial relationship is Clap When You Land by Elizabeth Acevedo. This is a YA contemporary following these 2 young girls who found themselves mixed as they realize they both share a father once their father dies. Like I said, it's very complicated. It is told strictly in verse, and we do get to see that complicated relationship sort of bud as they try to figure each other out and this really weird relationship that their father has put them in. This book made me cry. It was honestly so good. I highly recommend it if you guys haven't read it yet, and it does kind of have those complicated relationships between daughters and their fathers, and then daughters between each other. And the last and final book on this list is going to have to be The Beautiful by Renee Ahdieh. This is a YA historical fantasy. I believe it's actually now categorized as adult. I don't remember. It's a historical fantasy following young Celine as she runs to New Orleans after being almost sexually assaulted, trigger for mentions of sexual assault on the page, by a man in France. Here she finds herself kind of enmeshed or mixed in with this group of kind of ragtag teens. Now the found family aspect is found in the family of paranormals that sit together and like form a bond in a very loyal familial relationship with each other. I need to read the 3rd book. I think it just came out, so it's on there. But I love this relationship, and I love this family, and I love diving back into this world that Renee Ahdieh has created, and I highly recommend it if you're looking for a found family that isn't Six of Crows. But it has some fantastical aspects in it. But that is it for this video. If you guys enjoyed this kind of video, please let me know in the comments below. If you guys have any suggestions of this kind of central topic for me to read more of, let me know. But until next time, hope you guys are having a wonderful week, and if not, hopefully the next week gets better for you. Bye!